Dear participants, welcome. Today we will talk about one of the most important parts of the PCSOS project, the responsibilities of staff, volunteers, and officials when it comes to protecting children. PCSOS stands for Protecting Children Sport, developing safe and inclusive sport organizations. It's a project supported by Erasmus Plus and carried out with international partners. The main goal is very clear: to make sure that children and people with disabilities are safe from any kind of abuse in sport. In this part of the session, I want to stress out one key point. Anyone who has direct or indirect contact with children in sport, whether a coach, a volunteer, or an official, could, in some cases, become a risk. This does not mean blaming anyone. What matters is to understand the risk and to take our ethical responsibilities seriously. In recent years, new laws and rules have been introduced, both in general and for the sports field. Child protection and abuse prevention are now defined more clearly. This is a chance for us, but also a responsibility, because laws alone are not enough. What really matters is the people who work face to face with children. They must be aware, trained, and ready to act. Let us keep in mind that child protection is just not an idea. It is something we put into practice every day. From the safety of sports equipment, to supervision in locker rooms, from the way we speak to children, to how we organize travel, every small detail affects their safety. So today, we will look together at who holds these responsibilities and how they should be carried out. Now, let's move on to our second slide. Here we face three important questions. Who can abuse children in sport? What are the legal responsibilities at national and international levels? And what special risks or obligations come directly from the nature of sports itself? First, let's be clear. It is wrong to think that abuse only comes from strangers with bad intentions. Sometimes it can be a coach, a volunteer, or even a parent who, through wrong actions, puts the child's safety at risk. That is why we need to identify risk profiles in advance and provide proper preventive training. When we look at the legal side, many countries now have specific regulations for sports organizations. For example, background checks for coaches, mandatory child protection training, and open complaint mechanism. At the international level, many sport federations, especially in Olympic sports, have made child protection a central part of their ethical codes. But maybe the most important risks come from the sport itself. The sport environment often includes competition, travel, intense training, and strong authority relationships. Each of these can create risk for children. For example, a child being left alone during a tournament trip or spending long hours along with a coach can be very dangerous. That is why everyone who works with children's sport needs comprehensive training, and this training should not only cover legal rules, but also cultural awareness, communication skills, sport ethics, and practical strategies for prevention. Only then we can build a truly safe sporting environment. In our third slide, we see the new and updated rules that have been defined in sport organizations for child protection. These include child safeguarding officers, event staff, parents, and caregivers, volunteers, service providers, health professionals, and whistleblowing officers. The key message here is simple. Child protection is not the duty of just one person or one committee. It's the shared responsibility of the entire system of everyone involved in a support organization. Because risk can appear in different ways at every level. For example, even staff are responsible for making sure that support facilities are safe, equipment is in good condition, and children are never left without supervision. Parents and caregivers must monitor their children's readiness and health and also act as a positive role models. Volunteers need to support children while keeping clear and professional boundaries. As professionals should respect not only medical needs but also child's privacy and safety. And whistleblowing officers form the core of a reliable and transparent reporting system. What we learn from this is clear. Support organizations become truly safe only when each of these roles is well defined, supported by training, and regularly monitored. Child protection is not an extra task. It's a central duty of every institution. Our role is to fill these profiles with meaning, define them clearly with procedures, and make sure that are put into practice on the ground. In our fourth slide, we look at the responsibilities of event and organization staff. These are the people working in sport venues, and in many ways, they are the first line of the defense for children's safety. Their most important duty is to help prevent abuse, bullying, and harassment. To do this, they must make sure that the code of conduct is followed not only by coaches and athletes, but also by volunteers, parents, and all participants. They are also responsible for ensuring that no adult is ever left alone with a child in isolation, knowing the emergency plans, checking the safety of facilities, and making sure that equipment does not pose any risk. The critical part of this role is observation. Staff members see what is happening on the field or in the stands more closely than anyone else. That means if they notice signs of physical or emotional distress in a child, they cannot ignore it. They should report it if necessary and create a safe space for child. In short, organization staff are not only the ones doing the job, they are also those who ensure the safety and uphold the standards. Their awareness and careful actions are vital to keeping the child protection chain strong. In our fifth slide, we see the new and updated profiles that have been defined in support organizations for child protection. It is no longer only about coaches or managers. Responsibilities are now clearly set out for a much wider range of roles. These include child safeguarding officers, event staff, parents and caregivers, volunteers, service providers, health professionals, and whistleblowing officers. The main message here is this: child protection is not the job of a single person. It requires a systematic approach because risk can appear at every point of contact. For example, during travel, careful supervision by a volunteer; during training, close attention from a health professional; or during an incident, quick action from a whistleblowing officer. All of these make the whole chain stronger. Defining these new profiles also helps organizations act in line with both national and international standards. It increases accountability because when each role is clearly described, no one can shift their responsibility onto someone else. So, child protection is no longer just an ethical duty. It is now a defined function within the system, and that is an important step in building safe supporting environments. In our sixth slide, we focus on a very critical point. Sometimes people who work with children may be seen as potential offenders. This perception can become even stronger in multicultural, competitive, or leisure time environments. The aim here is not to label or stigmatize anyone, but to stay aware of the risks. The truth is that every action of those who work with children is closely observed and interpreted. That is why training is essential, and training should not only include knowledge about preventing abuse, but also cultural awareness, communication skills, and the ability to keep professional boundaries. For example, even a volunteer's physical contact, made with good intentions, can be misunderstood and damage the child's sense of safety. Or a coach's harsh words, even if meant as a joke, may be felt as psychological pressure. This is why training needs to bring together both child safeguarding principles and ethical standards of sport. In the end, when everyone working with children knows their professional responsibilities and acts accordingly, it not only ensures safety but also builds a strong foundation of trust. In our seventh slide, we focus again on the responsibilities of event and organization staff. This role is often overlooked, but it is actually very critical for the child's safety. Organization staff are the ones who directly observe and manage what is happening on the ground. Their main responsibility is to prevent abuse, harassment, and bullying. To achieve this, they must make sure that the code of the conduct is followed by everyone, athletes, coaches, parents, and volunteers. They must also ensure that no adult is ever left alone with a child without supervision, that emergency plans are well known, and that the facilities are safe. Staff are also responsible for physical safety, checking that equipment is secure, removing risk from the environment, and keeping first aid plans ready. These are not just formal procedures. They directly affect the safety and well-being of children. In short, organization staff are not simply a support team. Their attention and care are one of the most important factors in ensuring the safety of the entire event. In our eighth slide, we turn to the role of parents and caregivers. A child's participation in sport is not only the responsibility of the club or the federation. Families are the most important link because children first learn safety and guidance from their parents. Parents must make sure their children are physically and emotionally ready to take part in sport. Sharing health information with organizers, being clear about allergies or treatments is part of this duty. They should also teach their children about personal safety, respecting boundaries, and speaking up if they feel uncomfortable. Another key responsibility is being a role model. Children copy the behavior of their parents. Showing respect to the referees, coaches, and other children, communicating in a positive way, and avoiding pressure are all critical. Finally, supervision should never be forgotten. Parents need to know who their children spend time with and whether travel and accommodation are safe. The active involvement of families forms the strongest part of the child protection chain. Our ninth slide focuses on the responsibilities of volunteers. Most sport events and organizations rely heavily on the support of volunteers, which makes their role very important. But when they come into contact with children, volunteers also carry a serious responsibility. Every volunteer must fully follow the child safeguarding policies of the organization. Before starting their role, they should receive the necessary training and complete safety checks. When interacting with children, they must know their boundaries and never be left alone without supervision. Volunteers also need to create a positive atmosphere. They should treat children fairly, respectfully, and inclusively. Discrimination, favoritism, or the use of inappropriate language can never be accepted. If they notice any risk or suspicious situation, they must report it immediately. At the same time, volunteers serve as role models for children. Their passions, sportsmanship, and behavior directly influence the learning experience of young athletes. In this way, volunteers are not just helpers, they are active contributors to building a safe and positive sports culture. In our 10th slide, we look at the responsibilities of service providers. In sport organizations, people who provide services such as transport, catering, security, technical support, or cleaning are often in direct contact with children. That is why they also hold an important responsibility in the child protection chain. Their first duty is to follow the child safeguarding policies of the organization. If they are in direct contact with children, safety checks must be completed and codes of conduct must be respected. They should keep clear professional boundaries and never take photos or recordings of children without permission. Another key responsibility is the safety of the service they provide, from the hygiene of the food to the safety of transport to making sure equipment is not harmful to the children. Every detail matters. Finally, if service providers notice any suspicious situation, they must report it without delay. Their awareness and responsible actions are an essential link in ensuring overall safety of sport organizations. In our 11th slide, we look at the responsibilities of medical officers. In sport settings, the most sensitive contact with children often happens through medical staff. This means their role is not only medical but also ethical and protective. Medical officers must follow the child safeguarding policies of the organization and also receive special training. During examinations or treatment, they must respect the child's privacy and, whenever possible, make sure that a parent or another responsible adult is present. It is also very important to explain what is being done in simple language that children can understand, as this builds a sense of trust. Records must be kept confidential and shared only with the people who truly need to know. In addition, medical officers should monitor the risk of overtraining, fatigue, or injury and intervene when necessary. Because the risk health of children always comes first, let us remember, a safe sport environment can only be achieved when medical staff carry out their duties with care and sensitivity. In our 12th slide, we focus on whistleblowing officers. This role is the key to a reliable reporting system within the child protection because children or even those around them may not always feel able to express their concerns directly. Whistleblowing officers must serve as a neutral and trustworthy point of contact for children, parents, staff, and volunteers. They should listen to complaints without judgment, record them carefully, and forward them to the right channels. Their duty is not only to receive reports, but also to protect the persons making the report. The identity of the whistleblower must be kept confidential and they must be protected from any punishment or pressure. At the same time, the reporting process must be fast, transparent, and handled according to clear procedures. Let us remember, a true culture of child protection can only exist when people are not afraid to speak up. Whistleblowing officers are the guarantee of that culture. In our 13th slide, we look at the responsibilities of the child protection officer. This role is the very heart of safeguarding processes within the organization. The child protection officer is the first point of contact when there are concerns or suspicions about a child. Listening to the child, recording the information accurately, and passing it on to the appropriate authorities are the most essential parts of this role. They are also responsible for making sure that child protection policies are applied throughout the organization and for organizing training sessions to raise awareness among staff and volunteers. Behind the scenes, they follow up background checks for coaches and volunteers, and they make sure that records remain confidential. Most importantly, the child protection officer does not act alone but coordinates the system. The role is not about owning the responsibility, but about ensuring that the whole organization shares it. The continuity of a safeguarding culture is only possible through this coordination. In our 14th slide, we talk about process management in sport organizations. The key point here is this: managing sport is very different from managing industry or the economy. In sport, we deal with people, emotions, unpredictability, and unique opportunities that often come only once. Sports events are usually organized with a one-chance mindset. A match, a tournament, or a championship cannot be repeated. That means process management is shaped by the time pressure, emotional intensity, and the involvement of many different actors. And in the middle of this complexity, the safety of children must be protected. This puts a big responsibility on managers. Risk management, emergency planning, quality control, and logistics must all be considered with child protection in mind. For example, when planning a tournament schedule, it is not only about performance. Rest, nutrition, and safety needs must also be included. In short, process management is not only about reaching success, it is also about creating a safe and inclusive environment. The health and safety of children should always stand at the center of planning. Now, in our final slide, we see who is behind this project. This training material was prepared with the goal of ensuring safety for children and persons with disabilities in sports environments. Behind it stands the support of Erasmus Plus and the open collaboration of many different sport organizations. The most important aspect here is the multi-stakeholder structure. Universities, federations, non-governmental organizations, and public institutions have come together to develop a shared vision. Each one contributes its own experience and expertise to strengthen the culture of child protection. The purpose of this project is not only provide information, but also have institutions put child protection procedures into practice. In other words, this is not just a booklet, it's a practical guide. My final message is this: child protection should not be limited to the life of a project. It must become an integral part of institutional culture. If each of us express this understanding within our own organizations, we can make sports environments safer, more inclusive, and more sustainable. And this is the ultimate goal of the PCSOS project. Thanks for listening.